Hello and welcome to the Raw Podcast brought to you by the Sunderland Echo. I'm your host for this evening, James Copley. If you haven't heard, Sunderland have signed Pierre Ekwa from West Ham for an undisclosed fee on a contract until the summer of 2027. News has just broke in the last 15 minutes or so following Sunderland's win against Middlesbrough at the Stadium of Light. I'm joined by two esteemed guests. We have Graham Atkinson of the Wise Men Say podcast. Graham, how are you doing? Nice beard you've got going there. That definitely rivals mine.
All right, James. Yeah, good. Thanks, man.
And we're also joined by Paul Dobson, better known as Sobs of the ALS fanzine, long-time contributor there. He sported a moustache today, though. Roy Keane-inspired Sobs, you were telling me before we came on.
Yep, it was a good excuse to stay in for the night and grow one.
Excellent. That would probably take me about 10 weeks, to be fair. We'll also be joined by Dave Lawrence shortly as well. He's of the What the Folk podcast, but he's just sorting his laptop out. So, gents, we've made a signing. It's January transfer window. We'll start there. Graham, your initial thoughts? A young lad, Frenchman, 21, coming in, covering competition for Corey Evans, you'd hope, but another progressive signing, it feels like, by Speakman and Harvey.
It's another one of them where, for honest, I hadn't heard of him, don't know a lot about him. I think that seems to be the general consensus. I don't think a lot of people have outside of West Ham. I think, I suppose he hasn't played a lot of men's football from what I gather. So it's going to be one of them where you don't really know how he's going to fit in until he starts playing, I guess. I think I'd heard that he had a few injury issues when he was at Chelsea. So hopefully he's over those. But, he's got physicality, which I think we're probably lack, generally speaking, across the squad. By all accounts, he's a big lad. West Ham supporters who I've seen online, speaking highly of him in terms of what they've seen on under 21s. So, but I suppose the caveat is, if he hasn't played much of men's football, is he going to hit the ground running in the Championship? I suppose it's one of those where, time will tell.
Welcome, Dave. How you doing, mate? All right? Oh, can't hear you, Dave. I'm not quite sure what's going on. He might need to try and rejoin again. We'll go on to Sobs in the hope that we can get Dave. Sobs, you've pretty much seen it all, sort of covering Sunderland and watching Sunderland. What do you make of this signing and this type of signing?
Well, it was initially mooted as another loan signing, which didn't seem to do clever things. We just let a central midfield go out on loan, but now it's turned into a permanent one. It makes a lot more sense. And like Graham said, I know nothing about the lad other than West Ham fans rate him highly. And if he is physically big, it's a big thing for us. I know Corey Evans is, as he showed at the weekend, he's a bit brittle. So we do need cover, but Dan Neil, I think, is grown into that from being somebody who needs his hand held to holding other people's hands. And he's been very good looking after Misha when he's come on. So if he is a physical lad, and if he comes on as well as the last person we signed from West Ham, I'll be quite happy because he fits the model that we're trying to bring in now, young hopefuls who've got a good 5-6 years in them before we even think about them having to move on. It's not like he's getting towards the end of his playing career, which we've typically gone for in the past.
Absolutely. Graham, it feels like as well, Sobs mentioned Adji Elise, who's come in. We've had Dennis Serkin, Mishu, Bar, Hume. We seem to be seen as a venue or a platform where young players can express themselves, can grow. That hasn't always been the case at Sunderland, really, has it?
Certainly, it's a marked difference. I mean, I suppose whatever you think of the philosophy at the club in terms of how we play, the recruitment model, it's certainly a marked difference to what we've had before. There seems to be a plan. There seems to be a strategy behind it. I'm all for bringing in players and developing them. I mean, I think what I'd say is the only caveat to that is it feels a little bit like it's the only approach, and maybe we could do with a few more, a bit more experience in the squad. I think you can bring players in who are still young, but who have a little bit of experience behind them. In fairness, we've done that with Dan Ballard. He had a season at the Championship behind him before he came in. So, personally speaking, I think it's great. I think it's great bringing in players and developing them. I would also like to see maybe one or two more experienced heads come in. But yeah, it's a great advert for attracting new players. Players must look at the where we are in the league, look at the brand of football we're playing. The interplay between some of the players is incredible. In fairness, so it's a great advert, and yeah, I'm sure that was one of the reasons why Ek was decided to join.
Where do you stand on that argument, Sobs? Because as Graham mentioned, Sunderland play some fantastic football. There's the excitement of youth, but with youth also comes a bit of naivety at times, doesn't it? And Sunderland do have some experienced pros, but not a great deal of them. Would you like to see Speakman maybe target some experience in the remaining sort of 8 days of the January window?
It would be an idea. Like you said, it's very exciting watching them play, and they do link up together well. I mean, Patrick Stewart, people still think of him as a young player, but he's been around quite a few years now. And thankfully, it looks like he's found a home somewhere he's happy at last. And, I've not seen us play with so many forward-thinking players for probably since Peter Reid's second, third, fourth seasons, where we're bombing forward at every opportunity. But that was more direct wing play. This is some really clever stuff that goes from one side of the pitch to the other, but moving forward. So it's great to see kids growing into that. With the four of them when they signed in the summer, we all thought, well, I've not heard any of them. What we're going to get, and we've got some. Diallo he'd walk into most Premier League teams, to be honest. The way he's played since he's settled down, so it's great to get them. And if they keep developing quickly, it perhaps negates the need for more experienced heads. But you can't beat a bit of experience. It's always, tell them how to play the game. Kirby their enthusiasm at times. Mr. O'Neill, even though he's one of the senior pros now, someone to come in and tell them when to take a breather, when it's okay to have a bit of a huff,
yeah,
and when it's not okay to show your passion, if you like.
And on that point, Graham, Danny Bart's been instrumental this season. I remember the sort of first 3 or 4 games, Pritchard was sort of holding that midfield together. It looked quite naive at times. Thinking of the Coventry game, Pritchard was instrumental in Sunderland getting a result that day. Who else? Gooch has been good with his experience, and there's a few others that can name. Corey Evans is the obvious one in the middle. So there is that need for a good blend, isn't there? As exciting as the transfer strategy is.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like there's talk of Wright leaving, and yeah, his appearances have been limited this season. But if Danny Bart was to get an injury, you look at the back line and how many experienced pros have we got? Well, probably Wright's the only one, the obvious one that would jump out. And then there's also, I guess, the leadership that goes on, in the dressing room, and presumably with his experience there in terms of international tournaments and all the rest of it, what he can bring. He's got that sort of leadership material, which I do think you need in a squad. It's not just about putting the youth on and hope for the best. It is striking the right balance and getting the blend. And I think if you look at our average age, are we probably the third youngest squad in the league, behind maybe Blackpool, I think. Coventry, maybe.
Yeah, no, we put out the youngest team, didn't we, a couple of weeks ago? The youngest team in all 4 divisions.
Yeah, we did.
Very childlike.
Sobs, what would you do with the Bailey Wright situation if you were in charge? I thought it was an interesting one when it emerged, because he isn't really playing, and it's probably a little telling that Luke O'Nine's been preferred to him at centre half. But when there's an emergency in a match situation, it's sort of break the glass and pull Bailey Wright out. We saw it against Middlesbrough. We've seen it multiple times this season. He's coming off the back of playing in the World Cup with Australia. He's 30 years old. He probably wants to play. Personally, I wouldn't let him go until the summer.
No, I don't think it would be a good idea to let him go. He probably will in the summer because of his age. Simple as that. And they know that O'Nine's there as well, who, stick him anywhere. He'd probably make a good goalkeeper. We don't know yet, thankfully. But he'll give it a go, and he's played well at centre half. So that would probably be my thinking anyway. Get to the summer. I know there's been talk of Danny Bath going in the summer as well, but I think it would be bad planning to get shot of both of them. One we could probably live with, because Ballard's come on, hit the ground running, looks a finished article, really.
Yeah, he really does. The other sort of transfer snippet that emerged yesterday was that Amad Diallo's loan recall clause has expired now, so he won't be going back to Manchester United this January, which is a huge boost, Graham. One of the, I'll go out on a limb and say one of the best players I've seen in a Sunderland shirt, skill-wise. I know we're playing in the Championship, which is the league below the Premier League, but it reminds me a lot of Sessegnon, but better at releasing the ball. His technique's marvellous. He's sublime, and it's one of those, Graham, where I'm slowly falling in love with a lone player again, but I'm just going to enjoy him while we've got him.
Oh, this is probably the best lone player from we've had since probably Johnny Evans, and in terms of just how instantly you can kind of see the qualities there. Even when he's kind of started perhaps a little slowly in terms of the season, you could still see there was quality there. I mean, the kind of the touches, the Zidane sort of pirouettes and all the rest of it on the pitch. It's just, especially when it comes off, it's just it's a sight to behold, isn't it? I think he's got 7 goals. He's producing it, and I think it's what happens when Pritchard kind of comes back, and then you've got one of those problems where what do you do with Roberts? Where do you play them? Where do you play Diallo? It's great to see. It's great to see the fact that he's producing it and he's linking the player together, and Roberts and Diallo together. They're certainly a partnership that's developed. So yeah, when Pritchard comes back, I suppose it's what do you do then? It's a great problem for Mowbray.
Sobs, what have you made of Amad Diallo? Does he remind you of anybody historically as a Sunderland player?
Strange enough, no. There's a little bit of Julio Acker about him, the way he hunches over the ball, but then he's like Graham just said, he spins away from people and finds a pass. And if you watch the replay of his goal yesterday, he's nowhere in sight after he gave Roberts the ball. Then all of a sudden, a little reverse pass from Roberts, and he's steaming in from behind the counter. So it's lovely to watch. And mind, after that shocking head injury Fernandez got yesterday, when the goalkeeper's arm brushed his glove or something, I thought I'm bound to recall the lad because he's going to be out for months, Fernandez. But no, it is, all joking aside, he's a fabulous footballer to watch. He's an absolute delight. And I know there was a little bit, I think, was it down at Shrewsbury where he got a bit huffy because it didn't work. Around about the hour mark, he was trying things and it wasn't coming off. And we thought, oh, he's not going to start behaving like that. But I think somebody had a word with him and he perked up again. And to be honest, we were thinking about we should be taking him off on yesterday, just before he scored, get somebody in to shore things up. But left him on, he did the business. It was those little, they know what he's going to do when he comes in from there, but they never know exactly when he's going to do it down to the split second. And that's what counts, makes the difference between a goal and a block.
Yeah, absolutely. Pleasure to watch. Do we have Dave Lawrence? Is he back? Can we hear him?
I think we might be sorted, mate.
Oh, yeah, here you do. Fantastic. Lovely to see you. I haven't seen you for quite a while. You've missed a fair bit. We've signed somebody.
Yeah. I was just flicking through Twitter while trying to sort out microphone. Apparently, it's the first time I've ever used the microphone on this laptop. So that's where we went wrong. It hadn't been set up.
Oh, well, happy days. But yeah, we've signed Ekwa. We're just sort of running through Amad Diallo's influence. Graham, actually, question for you first, and then we'll head over to Dave. But you mentioned there that little partnership with Roberts and Amad, and it's really bearing fruit, and it's lovely to see. It's lovely to watch the play so close to each other. They're on the same wavelength. But then I look at some of the criticism of Jack Clarke in recent weeks, who I think's a bit below par at the moment, but still doing a reasonable job in providing width and a willing runner. I feel a little bit for him because Roberts and Amad are so close together. Obviously, Amad's supposed to be playing in that 10 role. You would expect him to drift out to both sides, but he tends to be drawn to Roberts because they've got that connection. And to be fair, I think Mowbray encourages that. Sunderland don't really play with wing-backs bombing on, overlapping. So I do feel a bit for Clarke, who is still I think, Sunderland's top of the assist charts at the moment. But it just seems to have gone a bit flat for him.
I was just going to say, I mean, I think he's still ahead on the assists. Different qualities, I guess, for me. Like you say, Clarke is more of he kind of runs it direct. He's more direct, running at defenders, drawing fouls. yeah, he's maybe not he doesn't link up as well with Diallo or more often, but he's still got the threat. I think you can't really underestimate his contribution this season. So for me, he still gets on the team sheet. I think the draw on the fouls you saw against Boro, I think 09 picked up on commentary as well. And I was watching it back. You think the way that he kind of runs at the players, that a defender thinks they've got an opportunity to nick the ball, and then the next thing you know, he's gone. And I think it's crucial they win those fouls around the box and put the pressure on at times in games, and that's what he can bring.
For those that don't know, Dave lives away from Sunderland, so I'm guessing you didn't travel up for the game on Sunday, Dave, did you?
Mate, I didn't. I had a very busy food service. Obviously, being a chef, so I had my phone on top of a microwave while I was cooking away. Dedication for you.
Excellent, perfectly placed to analyse the game on this podcast. Then the other sort of big event in the football world today, Dave, has been the sacking of Frank Lampard at Everton. Obviously, Sunderland would probably quite like to bring Ellis Sims back on loan. They've now got to find a new manager with 8 days of the transfer window left. So I doubt Sims is sort of high up on their bucket list of priorities. What do you see happening with that situation?
To be honest, I think it was something I was going to mention on What the Fault the other day, but I had a little bit too much drink when we did that podcast and I couldn't remember what I was talking about. So I might have actually said it, but don't quote me. But Tony Mowbray came out in the week and basically totally downplayed the whole Ellis Sims thing and said he's not number one target on the list. Yes, we like him. He's a very good player. He was here. He thinks he's being treated unfairly. But ultimately, we have other irons in the fire, which is just refreshing. Everything about us at the minute is really, really refreshing. So that kind of plays down the fact, which isn't great for Ellis Sims personally. But for us as a club, it means if we went in for a transfer, we're not going to be charged top dollar because they're like, oh, they haven't got all the eggs in one basket. So I'm pretty relaxed about it. I heard Graham say earlier and totally agree. I'm sure a lot of us echo the sentiment, but we could do with another 2 centre forwards. I wouldn't mind if it was Ellis Sims. He fits in with the whole model of what we're trying to do. But if there's other players out there who are going to be easier to get, who have the same kind of attributes, then I'm all for that as well. To be honest, I've got quite a bit of faith in the bringing in of new players. I know I've had my criticisms of, listen, I'm not suggesting we should spend $100,000 a week on Ross Stewart. I'd give him it personally, but it's not my money. But other than that, the players that are coming in seem exciting, seem quite dynamic. So yeah, I'm pretty comfortable with it all.
There's been very few missteps by the transfer committee at Sunderland. I'm thinking of maybe Defoe, Frederick Alvarez, or Alves, whatever he was called. The striker situation seems to be the big glaring. I'm not saying it's an oversight because I think the club's aware of it, but it seems to be the one area in which things haven't really gone to plan for whatever reason, and Sunderland are left with just Ross Stewart at the moment, which is far from ideal. Yeah,
I know. We found almost to our cost a few months ago when he got hurt and Sims got hurt at the same time. We had to change our whole strategy, and I agree with it. It would be unbelievable that the club haven't tried to sign people there to fill those gaps, but it just hasn't happened. And it's always a place that you're going to get charged the maximum amount of money. When, if you can remember Antoine Semenyo we had about 3 years ago, they're wanting 10 million quid for him now. And that, Ross Stewart's got to be, he's a lot better prospect than him, even though, he's a couple of years older, but the guy scores a small number of goals and all of a sudden he's worth 10 million quid. That, we're not going to be looking at that sort of player, but they are the gems to find amongst all the coal dust, I suppose. They're what we've got to look for and try and identify somebody from somewhere if we haven't got them already in the youth setup and it doesn't look like we'll have someone ready to step up yet. But I hope we've got somebody lined up, if, like Dave says, if we've got other irons in the fire from Mowbray's point of view and he's not phased about not getting Sims back because Everton, they'll be wanting whoever they get in to look at the striking options at that club. I really hope there is somebody, young that fits the bill and can back Stewart up either by being an option to play alongside him, like Sims was, or to be there just in case.
Yeah, absolutely. Subs hit the nail on the head there, Graham. But you feel that Sunderland need a couple of strikers to come in the window, and if it was just Ellis Sims on loan, that would probably be presented as a good window. But would it really be in that department? Just in the sense that we had Sims, he's gone back, we've brought him back. If he does come back, that is. But you still need a Ross Stewart sort of replacement plan in place. I'm not saying he's going to go anywhere immediately, but you need these long-term strategies, don't you?
I felt as though we needed a third striker in the summer. I felt as though we needed one at the outset, really. And the fact that we've played as many months as we did with no strikers, and now in January here we are with one striker. You can be complimentary about the recruitment and rightly so. But for me, that was a misstep to enter the season with just the two. I mean, every other team in the league has 4 strikers easy. So and it just means that, God forbid, Stewart pulls up, injured in the next game, we're suddenly back to having no strikers, and every striker that's on the market, their value just skyrockets, and wage demands and agents, know that you've got you on the back foot. So for me, in that scenario, I think strategically it was a bit of a misstep. But yeah, for me, we need a striker on a permanent, and probably another loan who, and hopefully that's going to be Sims, but we can't wait around. If Lampard's sacked as we gather he has been today, where does that place Sims? Presumably the next manager in's going to want to assess his squad. Does that mean Sims is any imminent return is now sort of pushed back again? I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see, I guess.
Yeah, I could rant on this all day, but I feel like Lampard and Everton have sort of not ruined, but certainly stalled his breakout season in a way, because he was doing so well. He was settled. He's a lovely bloke, dead relaxed, dead chilled. He was just getting on with his football, playing games in the Championship, which he hadn't done previously in his career. Suddenly he's back at Everton. Obviously, they're well within the rights to do that because he's their player and they're struggling. But he's played twice off the bench, I think, when Everton have already been losing for about 14 minutes. He was on the bench in the FA Cup. So he can only play now for Sunderland and Everton. So you would think the common sense would prevail. But that club looks absolutely nuts at the moment. I want to talk about some actual football, Dave, because that would be nice. Just thinking about Sunderland's back four against Middlesbrough. On current form, is that the best back four that Sunderland couldn't put out there? It was Adji Alisi left back, who I love at left back. Obviously, Sirkin injured at the moment. But we've stumbled upon Ballard and Bath at centre half because of O'Nine's injury. And then you had Trey Hume at right back, who was just on another level sublime.
Yeah, lovely, isn't it? Options. I mean, even with a back four, out of those four, you could easily play 3 of them in a back 3. Alessi did it quite well before his injury, to be honest. But at the same time, that would mean dropping Trey Hume, which is like absolutely unthinkable at the minute. Nice to see a proper fullback, I think, is what we seem to be seeing week in, week out. And to be honest, at that age, becomes a little bit worrying, doesn't it? Listen, without getting ahead of yourself, it becomes a little bit worrying when players start playing at a decent level and consistently well week in, week out, because they're going to get noticed. But that's another facet of the model, I guess, and kind of them players who I've no doubt are completely towards Sunderland at the minute, but putting themselves in the shop window for Premier League clubs if we don't manage to match their aspirations ourselves. But yeah, listen, positivity around the whole fan base at the minute, which is just absolutely wonderful to see. I couldn't have thought of that 3 seasons ago. And I think someone's seen put a little snippet up earlier of the overhaul of where we were at and where we currently are. And it's just nice, players who are exciting us, but who want their ambitions matched by the football club, which is where, and I apologise for the pronunciation, but where the lad from West Ham, I heard a quote from earlier saying that he was sold the project. Listen, that's nice that people like that want to move from London. They're international, coming from international shores, and they want to move to Sunderland and surrounding areas based on football, which I'm sure when Roy King was here, he'd have loved players coming to Sunderland just to play football and not for the shopping centres and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Sobs heading into the Middlesbrough game. I don't think Middlesbrough had conceded under Michael Carrick. They were unbeaten in 9 or 10 games. I just thought Sunderland handled them really well. There was obviously the controversy with the Dale Fry sending off. Was it a penalty? Was it not a penalty? But Sunderland could have been 2-0 up. Probably should have been. Ahmad missed a glorious chance, and we've seen Ross Stewart bury those chances before. I thought was a really pleasing performance in a sense that even with the red card, Sunderland put it together for 90 minutes.
Yeah, we did, and I think that the only time Middlesbrough looked vaguely dangerous was when they'd gone down to 10, and we sort of stepped off the gas a little bit, let them move up the field a bit, but then there was no real penetration from them. Their forward pairing did less good. Our single man up front did. And it wasn't Ross Stewart's greatest game by a long way, but he was still far more effective than the two they had. And I suppose Middlesbrough fans will be really disappointed after the good run they've had under the new manager, 8-9 games, whatever. But it just didn't look dangerous, and we did. I know, like you said, we should have had at least 2 in the first half. And I'm always extremely nervous when we play Middlesbrough especially at our place, because despite what we think of them, it's their biggest game. It's what they see it as, and their fans want it to be a big occasion, and I guess it is because it's a bit bigger than any other league game we're going to play at home this season rather. So it was good to show them that we control this, and that you watch some of the passing movements that we've already been mentioning about between the 3 behind Ross Stewart and Dan Neil prompting them from deep, and it's just lovely to watch. And it must have been quite frustrating for the Middlesbrough fans and players to see the way that we went past them with apparent ease, and then and it was a penalty because the ref gave it, but the guy he waved play on twice already before Stewart got in the box, and there was a last despairing tug on his shoulder, so Stewart had probably lost his balance yards before, but then the last thing he tried to stay on his feet, and it's not a Gary McAllister situation where you get fouled and our man doesn't get up and the bloke runs 5 yards before falling over. He was being fouled for 15, 20 yards, and the last contact was in the box. So is it a sending off? I don't know. I'm not sure what all this double jeopardy ruling is now, where if you're given a penalty, it's enough punishment, you're a man down, you've already... Anyway, he went. He shouldn't have fouled him if he didn't want to get sent off.
No, this is... I think it looks... I don't know what your opinion is, Graham, but in real time, I thought definitely a penalty, definitely a sending off. And then you slow it down and it's like little niggling contact here and there. But when you slow it down, it doesn't look a lot. Yet when you're running at full tilt, it will be a lot. So for me, I thought the referees got it wrong. It's not a penalty because it's just outside the box, the initial contact. Sobs is right. He's been fouled for about 10 yards. So he's taken that risk. Ross Stewart's done extremely well to sort of stay up and then buy it in a way, but them's the breaks, really, isn't it? Dale Fry got himself in that position, and I must say the half volley from Roberts at right back to get Stewart through on goal was sensational.
In real time, and where I sit in the ground, I thought there was a clearer foul in the build-up. I thought he was, the ref could have blew and pulled it up almost immediately as soon as Roberts played the ball, but he let it go. And I think when you see the replay from behind the goal, I think it's almost the push that there's a lot of there's not a lot of contact, there's not a lot on it, but you can see it's a clear movement, a pushing move, where he's got his hand on him, he's pushing movement, and you don't have to, as you're rightly saying, as the cliche goes, you don't have to a lot of contact to fall over and at that speed, and they were going at some tilt. So yeah, pen for me. I can see why he give it, and he's last man, and yeah, we suffered the week before, so let someone else have the misery.
Yeah, Michael Carrick was not happy at all post-match, but Tony Mowbray just turned around and said, well, we had a bit of bad luck last week, so we'll take it.
Yeah, something which I alluded to last night. It swings and roundabouts. It'll come round the other way for Middlesbrough. It'll come round the other way for us at some point. It just is what it is. Listen, yeah, like Sob said, ultimately in the history books, it was a penalty. It was a sending off. I mean, the referee's probably thought to himself, my God, this is like Ross Stewart clean through. He's bound to score, so I've got to send him off. Probably he's thinking, to be honest.
There's actually a shout for Ballard, shout for a second. And,
yeah, I totally agree.
And then I think Carrick was sort of later towards the end of the game, thought they could have had a pen. Well, I think if the ref had give that one, then you should have been given the Ballard one, because they both look to be a similar sort of situation.
I thought exactly the same. And at the end of the game, the incident Carrick is talking about, they were already 2-0 down anyway. So I think he was annoyed. He hasn't tasted defeat a lot as a manager, Michael Carrick. I think that might have been his first defeat, actually. So yeah, he wasn't happy, and there's obviously the Newcastle connection there, Sobs, as well.
Oh, was he a mug?
Yes, he is indeed. We'll move swiftly on before I get myself into trouble with that. Stephen Elliott, the former Sunderland striker, earlier today, Dave wrote a column on the Sunderland Echo. He reckons Dan Neil is maturing into a future Sunderland captain. What have you made of him against Middlesbrough and so far this season?
Yeah, definitely. Just becoming more and more mature, and I think it's hard to remember. Sorry, wrong way of putting it. It's easy to forget. Would be an easy way to say it, wouldn't it? Let's be honest. It's easy to forget that this is only his second season as a professional footballer in the first team. Listen, Alex Neil protected him a little bit last year, and rightly so, probably. I think he was running on fumes a little bit. Took him out, and he, funnily enough, I think it's probably just at a time where everyone was saying, oh, he needs a rest again. He's gone a little bit tired. I think in the last probably 6 games, definitely, he's been phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Controlling games at this level, at that age, is pretty spectacular, to be fair. And just it makes you even more proud, doesn't it? The fact that he's a local lad and he's enjoying success. To be honest, I think for any of them to be playing football in the way that we try to play football, you're probably going to enjoy it more times than you're not, because it's successful. Listen, I remember watching the Preston game earlier in the season where we didn't have Ross Stewart, and it's looking at it from a fan's point of view. Preston fans must sit there and go, "What on earth is this we're watching week in, week out?" It's, okay, at times it might be effective, frustrating other teams and trying to pinch something here and there. But currently, I'd rather get beat watching a game of football the way we play football than I would pinching points the way that Preston did at the time. Obviously, there's other teams that could be mentioned in that. But yeah, Dan Neil, I just think, becomes more and more mature game by game. And a joy to watch.
Yeah, he's been magnificent. He spoke to a couple of the lads after the game. I sort of overheard him, and I'm just blown away by his maturity. Every time I hear him speak, he's got such a wise head on his shoulders. And he was talking about in the summer, in the summer, he felt like he had to lose a bit of weight because he'd concentrated so hard on the defensive side of his game that almost came at the cost of his attacking, and he wanted to sort of do both. So he targeted losing a bit of weight. He also spoke about how Alex Neil left him out. And his mentality, Sobs, was, well, the manager's left us out. He's the manager of the team. I need to find out what he needs to get me back in that team, and then I'll do it. And I just thought that was a magnificent way of looking at it.
It is. It's almost impossible to ignore. So stop not thinking about Jordan Henderson. What was he doing at the City? You know, he's similar. He moves in quite a similar way. Dan Neil, like I said earlier, he needed a helping hand last season, especially. And this season, he stepped up and he's looking after people 2 years younger than him, like the likes of Michu and Bar and that. And he's like a steadying influence in central midfield now. And he can't have pick a pass. You know, he reads the game very well, and he always knows where he looks like he knows where he's going to go before the ball arrives at his feet. He's already had a look round, and he's made his mind up where's the best place to go. And it's great. Like Dave said, you get, especially when it's a local lad doing it, and somebody used to stand and watch people doing what he's doing now. It's, you know, we've all would have loved to have done that sort of thing. There's thousands of people would, and he's living the dream. Him, the likes of Elliot Embleton, and you know all the other young lads coming through.
Yeah, it's a brilliant story, and I was massively impressed, Graham, with how he just dropped into that 6 role when Corey Evans went off. Not the first time he's done it this season, but shown a lot of maturity there.
I'd actually go as far as to say I think that's probably the best he's played for us.
Probably right.
I think, yeah, and he does look comfortable, and like you see, he's got that head on a swivel, and when he gets the ball under pressure, you don't feel like as a supporter, you know, you don't get that sense of anxiety. Like you know, he's gonna retain it, he's gonna keep possession, he's likely gonna pick a pass. Out of all of the midfielders, maybe Michu as well, he can just pick that pass eye of a needle, and it's fantastic that he's a local lad, the fact that he's coming through, and the fact that he's dominating games in this league for such a young age. And like, you know, I think Dave says it's his second season is some achievement. It'll, you know, hopefully they don't, but it'll not be long before I'm sure Premier League sides are linked. I think Villa were linked relatively recently. I'm sure there'll be plenty more if he keeps progressing as he does. Hopefully he sticks with us.
Yeah, absolutely. My worry with players like Dan Neil and Ross Stewart is that the club won't grow at the same pace as they do, and they'll need to leave us behind. But that's a worry for another day. I think it was Burnley and Villa that were linked with Dan Neil last season. I could go on for ages. There's so much to talk about Sunderland-wise at the moment, but we'll come to an end on this sort of general theme. Sunderland 3 points behind third place Watford, who were relegated from the Premier League last season. 1 point off the playoffs, although some teams do have a game in hand on us. As a Sunderland fan, you're always looking over your shoulder, but that gap has started to open up now, and we are 15 points off the relegation spots. I'll throw this to Sobs first. This season's been lovely, but what should we be aiming for as a fan base coming towards the end of the season? For me, the league, having played everybody, looks like we could do something, but I don't want to get too greedy. And that playoff word is hanging around my head, but I don't know. I don't want to say it. Where do you stand on it?
You want to do as well as possible, but you've got to be realistic. If we were to go up this season with this squad, we're going to have to do a Forest and buy a dozen players at a cost of 500 million quid to have any hope of stopping up. I'd rather we went up with the emerging talent that we've got, and to finish in the top third would be a real achievement, because remember, everybody we're playing this season finished higher than we did. We were the lowest ranked team out of everybody in this division 6 months ago. And you see the state of some of them. You wouldn't know how on earth that happened, but there you go. We should always strive for more if we can get. But I really like the sort of organic way we're trying to grow now, rather than do what we did years ago and you buy a shed load of mercenaries in, and you're still paying their wages 4 years after they've been to Besiktas and everywhere in the eastern Mediterranean. It's not a good way to run a football club, as we found to our cost, because we've had to basically rip it all up and start again. We've had sensible dealings. the policies generally work like we've already talked about. There's holes up front that we should really have filled, but I'm unable to for whatever reason. Playoffs is very realistic. Whether we want, of course, not what we want every game we play. So if we get into them, I'm all for going up. I won't be desperately sad if we don't go up. I'll be a bit disappointed, but you've got to, like I said, trying to keep my head in the ground, my feet in the ground rather. Let's be happy that it's fun going to the football again. And I'd rather we had another season of fun than a season of misery at the bottom end of the Premier League again.
No, I think you're right. It is very fun going to the football again. That's a point we maybe haven't made as much as we should have. It's exciting to go to the football, seeing players like Ahmad and Roberts and Clark and Stewart. It is good fun, and the atmosphere is improving all of the time. Graham, where do you stand on this promotion argument? I see lots of different views from fans online. There's the Sobs view that we should just take each day as it comes. Obviously, you can't turn a promotion down, but it's not necessarily something we should be aiming for. And then I see a lot of people saying, well, you've got Ross Stewart, who's one of the best strikers in the league. You've got Amad Diallo, who is a fantastic number 10. Dan Neil in the midfield, some experience over the pitch, a decent goalkeeper, some decent centre-backs. If we could get a few more in, we might not have a better chance for a while with a set of players who are really good.
I predicted that we'd finish 15th at the outset. And I think the way that we've played, I think it's probably fair to say that, should slightly readjust me thinking around that. I think it's clear that we're competitive in every game. And I think that's part of the fact that we're enjoying going to games again as a fan base. As Sob said, it's great to go. Match day is great again. And that can't be underestimated in terms of the last 4 years or so. The impact that has. If we went to the Premier League, that whole kind of soul destroying, the whipping boys of the Premier League, where you kind of limp along and hope you can play a little bit and get a few points at the end of the season was I think become sort of fairly tiresome to say the least. So it's great just being in a league and approaching games and feeling like there's a good chance we're actually going to win again. Of course, I haven't said that if we got up through the playoffs, it would be great. Let's be honest. But I think it just is about consolidation still for me, and I wouldn't be too disheartened if we miss out on playoffs. It's just about. I think the other point is back to the age profile of the squad. Really, I think that strategy that Christian Speakman seems to be kind of bringing into the transfers is signing young players who can then maybe mature with us. If you look at the average age of the squads who typically get promoted, it's usually around 27. Is it 27 years old, something like that? Yeah. So average age our squad is around 22, maybe. So if we can keep the same sort of players core together and they mature and improve with us, there's no reason why we shouldn't be knocking on the door of the top two spots in the next few seasons, and consolidate, improve slowly, and hopefully you're building from a stronger position.
Where do you stand on the debate, Dave?
Going back to pre-season predictions, I said we'd finish around about 10th and have a flirt with the playoffs. I still stand by it. And to be honest, whisper it quietly, I think the problem that the board are going to have, and I won't say Mowbray, because I think he came out the other week and said that he would like another crack at the Premier League. I think ultimately the dynamic that they've brought into the club are all people who want to do better, whether it's themselves, whether it's for the club. And listen, how many injuries and suspensions and stuff have we dealt with this season all the way through it? I said yesterday that if we get to the end of the season and we are, listen, Ross Stewart was out for 13 games. So that's 39 points. I'm not sure how many we took during that 13 games, but that's 39 points. If we miss out by 4 points, we're probably going to be kicking ourselves. But on the other side, we do have to look at the fact that, yes, we are newly promoted. We are, assembling a squad which is capable. But listen, if I'm not mistaken, Watford are third, a Blackburn fourth.
They are. Drew the first game at the weekend
finally.
as well.
Blackburn are fourth, and I think we could all probably sit here, as well as another 40-odd thousand Sunderland fans, say that when we went to Ewood Park and got beat 2-0, not only did we walk away disappointed that we got beat, we were actually disappointed that we didn't win the game.
Yeah.
And if that's kind of a yardstick, listen, we played well against Watford with massive injuries again, and showed good, resolute character. And I think that's what we've got in abundance, if I'm honest. Resolute character, that even if we lose one game, it's not going back to the days of, dare I say, messiahs like Phil Parkinson and people like that, where you lose one game and you suddenly think, right, we're going to lose 5. This team, this squad, you lose one, and you think the week after, I tell you what, we've got every chance of winning this. Now, that could be a contribution of the fact of how resolute the squad is, how dynamic they are, and also how much of a level playing field the division is in general, apart from maybe the exception of Burnley and Sheffield United. But I just have a feeling, and someone said to me yesterday, that you'll know pretty much Millwall's going to be tough away. But in the next 2 league games, I think if Sunderland managed to pick up 4-6 points, dare I say it, I think there's every chance that we could be having a semi-final playoff place. And I try to be, you guys know me by now, I try to be as realistic as I can and not get carried away. But I genuinely just have a little inkling that something might happen this season. And listen, you never want to knock down that opportunity. I can't imagine, even in the boardroom, right at the top, that Kirill's going to anyone. Listen, just make sure you don't win that game. We don't want a playoff position. So whisper it quietly, but I think there's every chance.
Yeah, Middlesbrough Sunderland playoff final, that would be nice, wouldn't it? Just looking actually as a final point, looking at the teams above Sunderland in the league at the moment. Sunderland in 9th, obviously, it's pretty congested, but Millwall above them in 8th. We've beaten them. Luton Town 2-2 at their place, played them without a striker. Middlesbrough lost at their place, but didn't have Stewart, who pulled up in the warm-up and spoiled that game. Struggled to recover, but we've just beaten them. Norwich City, we played them. We lost Alex Neil the day of the game. Should have beaten them. Blackburn Rovers, we've beaten them this season, as Dave mentioned. Lost to them at their place, but we were all pretty disappointed with that because we played well. Watford 2-2 at their place, yet to play them at home. Sheffield United, Dan Neil sent off after 15 minutes, went 2-0 down, got it back to 2-1. Probably thought that we could have got something from that game had we had 11 men. We're still yet to play them at home. Burnley 2-0 up at the Stadium of Light before we sort of crumbled. They look a good side. We're yet to play them away. So even just looking at that, it's actually quite promising. But I'm not going to let myself get too excited because I'm a Sunderland fan and I'm also a born cynic. Gents, thank you for joining us. If you would, please go around in a circle and tell us where they can find your content or podcasts or whatever. We'll start with Sobs, we'll go to Graham, and then we'll go to Dave.
Yeah, you generally get me on a match day with a report as soon after the game as I can get round to it, and whether there's a socket on the bus coming back and in print every now and then.
Excellent. That's with A Love Supreme.
With Love Supreme, sorry, yes.
Graham?
So check out wisemensay.co.uk. Lots of podcasts, lots of written content, lots of good stuff.
Cracking. Thanks, Dave. We'll be here all night with your podcast appearance lists.
Yeah, one or two. Whenever anyone can put up with my dulcet tones, but as a general rule with Graham over at What the Folk, and really pleasurable to do at the minute.
Yeah, it is quite nice. Well, gents, thank you very much for joining me. You can head over to the Sunderland Echo website. If you like, we'll have all of the latest transfer news and build up ahead of the game against Fulham in the FA Cup on Saturday. Once again, thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.